Did you know that the May visa bulletin is out and EB1 is current?
Babs is excited.
I'm excited. We're all excited, right?
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. I'm super excited about today's topic because the May 2020 visa bulletin has finally been published. It's out, and great news, EB1 is current again. I hear the cheers? Okay. This is super important because some of you may know EB1 has not been current since August 2018. You're probably wondering how I know that. Aside from remembering that fateful day like it was yesterday, I do my research. By the way, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, hello, my name is Stephanie D'Angelo. I am the founder of D'Angelo Law PLC. I upload videos every week, so make sure you're subscribed. Hit that bell button to turn your post notifications on. That way you can stay up to date every time I upload a new video. With immigration, things are changing non-stop. One minute you're allowed to apply for an immigrant visa, and the next minute the president signs an executive order telling you you can't. It's very important to stay up to date. How can you stay up to date? By subscribing to my YouTube channel. If you are a non-immigrant in the United States looking to apply for a green card, or even if you're outside of the United States, it is extremely important that you know how to read the visa bulletin. I'm going to briefly go over how to read the visa bulletin. That way you'll know when you can apply for a green card and how long you would have to wait depending on your preference category or nationality. So let's get started. Let's look at the visa bulletin for May 2020. The visa bulletin appears for family-based petitions and employment-based petitions. There are two separate visa bulletins. It's split up in final action dates and dates for filing. The easiest way to think about it is final action dates lets you know when you can adjust status from the United States. That's the simplest way to think about it, and dates for filing lets you know that when you are outside of the United States, when you can apply. The way that it works when you're outside of the United States is that your immigrant petition with USCIS must be approved first. USCIS will send your approved petition to the National Visa Center, who will contact you when an immigrant visa is immediately available to you. So your immigrant petition must be approved first before the National Visa Center will contact you, letting you know you can consular process. If a preference category is oversubscribed, or you see a date next to the preference category, that means that now we have a wait time. If a C appears next to the preference category, that means that it is current, it is not oversubscribed, and there are immigrant visas immediately available. When it comes to the final action dates, a C means you can file to adjust your status immediately. As I mentioned, if a date appears next to your preference category, that date means that that category is oversubscribed. So your priority date needs to be on or before the date that appears in that preference category in order to have an immigrant visa number available to you. Your priority date for your I-130 or I-140 that you filed, that's your priority date that controls and determines when you can file to adjust your status or apply for the visa abroad. Now let's talk about the fact that there are different columns in the visa bulletin. As you see, the column that appears first is all chargeability areas except those listed. And then the next one is China, India, Mexico, and Philippines. This means that those countries, China, India, Mexico, and the Philippines, all have a different wait time than any other country. Everything else applies the same way, so the dates that appear dictate when you can either file your visa application or when you can adjust your status. But these columns obviously show if you fall into one of those four nationalities, then your wait time is actually substantially longer. So this shows you exactly what the wait time is for those nationalities. Okay, so let's talk about the May visa bulletin for the employment-based preference categories. To give you a little bit of history, in August 2018, the EB1 preference category was no longer current as it had been for many years, and the priority date was changed to May 2016. The next month, we thought everything would go back to normal, but we were wrong. In September of 2018, EB2, EB3, and other workers were also no longer current. But then again, in October, when the new fiscal year started, more visas were issued, and then EB2, EB3, and other workers were back to current. However, the EB1 category still remained oversubscribed, and that has been the case until May 1st, 2020. This is great news. So EB1 is current, EB2 is current, EB4, EB5, all current. EB3 and other workers, there's still a wait time. That hasn't changed. Here's the difference between employment-based and family-based. For employment-based, you notice that there's additional columns for El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Vietnam. So family-based, there were the 4: China, India, Mexico, and Philippines, but the employment-based visa bulletin has an extra column for Vietnam and for El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. Now that EB1 is current again, you can now adjust your status immediately. You can adjust your status concurrently if you need to lock in your lawful presence in the United States. This is absolutely wonderful news. This is something that we've been waiting for the last 2 years. EB1 is current for final action dates, and it's also current for dates for filing visa applications. Now, I do want to point out that Trump's executive order does impact EB1 preference categories. In one of my previous videos, I do a complete breakdown of Trump's proclamation, and I explain who it applies to and who's exempt. So if you haven't seen that video yet, I'll link it right here so you can definitely check it out, as well as in the description below. EB1 preference categories are not exempt and therefore must wait for the suspension to be lifted in order to obtain an immigrant visa abroad. Those of you EB1 beneficiaries that are here in the United States are not subject to a suspension, obviously, because you're in the United States and can immediately adjust status. However, if you are outside of the United States, even though the visa bulletin is current, you do have to wait for that suspension to be lifted. Here's what I'm thinking. President Trump signs an executive order suspending immigration for 60 days, which includes the EB1 preference category, which is the highest preference category for employment-based petitions. The Department of State sees this executive order, notices that there's no exemption for EB1, and think, oh, no, just kidding, let's make it current again, because these are the type of immigrants that we need and want coming to our country at all times. Trump signs an executive order suspending it temporarily, and the Department of State makes it current again after 2 years. Coincidence? I think not. Let's briefly do a crash course on the preference categories for family-based petitions. You have immediate relatives of U.S. citizens, be it spouses, parents, or children of U.S. citizens. Children, by the way, have to be under the age of 21 and unmarried to be considered an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen. Immediate relatives don't appear on the visa bulletin. At all times it is current, which means that at any point an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen is eligible to apply for a green card immediately. F1 or first preference category is unmarried sons and daughters of U.S. citizens, so sons and daughters are over the age of 21 and children are under 21. Spouses and children of lawful permanent residents are F2A. F2B are unmarried sons and daughters, so those that are over the age of 21, that's F2B. Third preference is married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens, and fourth preference is brother and sister of a U.S. citizen. Notice how there isn't a preference category for married sons and daughters of lawful permanent residents, nor is there a preference category for brothers and sisters of lawful permanent residents. That means that neither of those qualify. The petitioner has to be a U.S. citizen in order to petition for their brother or sister or a married son or daughter. Let's take a look at the visa bulletin for the family-sponsored preferences. First preference category says March 22nd, 2014. So that means that if you are a U.S. citizen and you filed for your unmarried son or daughter on March 22nd, 2014 or before, then now your son or daughter, if they're inside the United States, now they are eligible to adjust their status. Let's look at the next preference category, spouses and children of permanent residents. There's a C next to it. What does this mean? It's current. Similar to the immediate relatives of U.S. citizens, who's always current, there's always an immigrant visa number available. Right now, those spouses and children that are being petitioned for by a lawful permanent resident are immediately eligible to adjust status right now. Let's look at the chart for filing family-sponsored visa applications. Here, with the F1 category, the priority date must be on or before November 22nd, 2014. Notice the difference here with the F2A preference category. There's no longer a C appearing next to it. There's an actual date here. So those that are outside of the United States, there isn't an immigrant visa number immediately available. The priority date has to be on or before March 1st, 2020. So that's my rundown of how to exactly read the visa bulletin. It's very, very important if you're looking to apply for a green card. If anything is left unclear, please leave your question in the comments and I will definitely respond to it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Also share with anyone you think it could be helpful to. Make sure you're subscribed with your post notifications turned on. That way you can stay up to date with all of the latest information that I upload. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Pretty. Look at her. She's so cute. Look at those blue eyes. My little baby.